Welcome back, everyone. The room still held the warmth of a presence that had only just disappeared. Yet that eerie sense of untouched order made Chelsea feel more terrified than any obvious sign of chaos ever could. There had been no struggle, no furniture overturned, no trace sharp enough to turn this into a disaster with a clear name. There was only absence. A strange, throbbing absence, almost insulting in its precision, as if Madison had deliberately removed herself from this world in the coldest possible way, leaving Chelsea standing alone in the middle of a storm of emotions she could not immediately sort through. On the table lay a short letter, so thin it looked almost harmless. And yet the moment Chelsea saw that familiar handwriting, she understood that what rested before her was not an ordinary goodbye. It was the first blade, wrapped in a silence so soft it became cruel. Chelsea had once believed she was strong enough to survive any upheaval, hard enough not to collapse under the sudden shocks Fairmont Crest kept throwing into her life. This place had always operated through polished masks, through graceful smiles hiding razor-sharp calculations, through promises that sounded like salvation, but were really only ropes tightening around someone else's throat. Chelsea understood that better than most, but she had never imagined that this time the person pulling back that curtain would be Madison. The one she had once seen as a rare refuge in a world built entirely on suspicion. The one she had believed still held a piece of truth, even if everything outside them had already begun to rot. That was why, when the first lines of the letter came into focus, the first feeling was not heartbreak, but a chill running down her spine. As if she had just been thrown into the center of a game she had thought she was only watching from the outside. The letter was not long, but every sentence carried the weight of a half-confession, enough to destroy everything Chelsea had believed, yet never enough to offer her a clear way out. Madison had not disappeared because of disgust, nor had she left simply out of fear. What was most frightening was that she seemed to have known something was coming, a dark tide moving silently through Fairmont Crest, slipping into every relationship, every arrangement, every glance that had once seemed harmless. In those brief lines, Chelsea began to grasp a truth so suffocating it seemed to close around her chest. Their relationship had never been just a fragile love story between two people trying to cling to each other. Madison had hidden more than that. Perhaps a past she had never confessed. Perhaps a dangerous connection to the secrets buried beneath the glossy surface of this community. Or worse, perhaps Chelsea herself had been drawn into that vortex from the very beginning without ever realizing it, only to discover now that every path backward had already disappeared. The more Chelsea read, the more she felt the anger inside her grow in a way she could barely control. The pain of being left behind was only the first layer of emotion, the shallowest and easiest to name. Beneath it was the bitter fury of someone who had just realized she might have fallen in love with the version of a person that had never truly existed. She did not know whether to hate Madison for lying or fear that this disappearance was not betrayal at all, but a desperate act of sacrifice. It was that uncertainty that drove Chelsea nearly mad. If Madison had left to run, Chelsea could hate her. If Madison had left to protect her, Chelsea would have to live with the unbearable feeling of having her right to choose stolen from her. But the cruelty of the letter was that it gave her no complete answer. It only forced open the door to suspicion and trapped her inside with hundreds of brutal possibilities crashing into one another. In Chelsea's mind, every memory with Madison began to warp. Moments that had once felt tender were no longer pure, but now seemed suspicious, suffocatingly so. Madison's strange silences, the evasive glances, the unfinished thoughts, the moments when she seemed about to confess something only to swallow it back down, all of it now stacked into a terrifying picture. Chelsea was not only hurting because she had lost the person she loved. She was hurting because she had been forced to re-examine the entire truth she had once lived inside. That struck at her pride in the most merciless way. Chelsea was not the sort of woman who was easily manipulated. She had always prided herself on her sharp instincts, on her ability to read people, on sensing danger before it was too late. And yet this time, either she had misread Madison completely, or she had chosen not to see what had been right in front of her. Both possibilities were enough to fill her with rage at herself. Outside, Fairmont Crest remained disgustingly calm. The spotless roads, the houses maintained with almost inhuman perfection, the closed doors hiding real lives behind them. Chelsea began to look at everything around her with different eyes. Madison's disappearance was no longer just a private tragedy between two people. It had become a sign, a warning, a broken link that exposed an entire hidden system of secrets beginning to crack behind the luxurious curtain this place wore so proudly. And if Madison truly knew something horrifying enough to make her leave in silence, then Chelsea was no longer just the one left behind. She might already have become the next target, or worse, a living witness to something someone was desperate to bury forever. From that moment on, Chelsea's pain began to transform into something far more dangerous. She no longer stood still as a victim abandoned by betrayal. Obsession sharpened her, made her colder, clearer, and willing to cross boundaries she once would have protected. Love had once softened her, but the secret Madison left behind was now turning that very love into a weapon. Chelsea began to understand that if she continued to do nothing but grieve and panic, she would be crushed beneath the forces moving behind this disappearance. If she wanted to survive, she would have to dig deeper. If she wanted answers, she would have to accept that some truths, once dragged into the light, would not only destroy Madison's image, but could also burn down everything Chelsea had ever believed about her family, her friends, and Fairmont Crest itself. The cruelest part was that no matter how furious she became, Chelsea still could not extinguish what remained of her feelings for Madison. That contradiction was what made this crisis so violent. One half of her wanted to tear the letter apart, bury everything, and call Madison a coward. The other half clung to every line as if reading it one more time might reveal some hidden signal proving Madison had not betrayed her, but had been desperately trying to save her from something even more horrifying. Yet the more Chelsea clung to hope, the deeper she was dragged into anger. She was angry at Madison for making her bear the consequences of secrets she had never created, angry at herself for still wanting to believe, and most of all angry at the way love itself could be twisted into a tool of manipulation, concealment, and control. The letter in Chelsea's hand was no longer a final message. It was a detonator. The first piece of evidence in a new war, one where personal emotion, could no longer be separated from the conspiracy tightening in from every direction. Madison's disappearance would not close a love story. It would unleash a chain reaction far more violent, one that would force Chelsea to choose between continuing to believe in the woman she had once loved or shattering everything in order to hunt the truth to its end. And in a place like Fairmont Crest, once love has been poisoned by secrecy, every choice leads to loss. The only difference is that this time, Chelsea will not cry because she was left behind. She will become the storm that let her awaken. Thank you for watching the entire video. If you want to see the latest shocking plot twists, please like and subscribe to our channel.